Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate today, Amy Holtkamp, and it is a joy to be with you today in person and virtually. So who are we as Community Church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. So I have one announcement today, which is that now that we're back able to be in church together, which is so wonderful, you'll probably notice that we're still broadcasting online for those members and friends who aren't able to be with us in person yet. And we are so thankful to the members of our church, like Sally Jackson, who's here today, who have been making that virtual part of our service possible throughout the pandemic. We could really use some more help on the tech side. So if any of you are interested in helping out, it's not too complicated once you get the hang of it, and we're happy to train you. If you're interested in helping us out, so we can have more folks in the rotation, it would be wonderful, and you can just let me know. You can email worship@ccuu.org, and we will set you up. For other announcements, please check your weekly email. So today, we are delighted to welcome to the pulpit Reverend Jacqueline Luck, a member of this congregation. We've had to postpone this sermon twice because of illness and the storm, so we are just thrilled that the third time is the charm, and that Reverend Jacqueline will be able to share her message with us today.
As our call to worship this morning, I have chosen to use the Mother Earth prayer. It's an abbreviated form by Kitsky in Tun. Mother Earth, hear your children. As we sit here on your lap of grass, we listen to the echoes of your voice in our brother the wind as he blows from all corners and directions. The soft and gentle raindrops are the tears you cry for your children. Teach us the lessons you offer. Mother Earth, hear your children. Be a bond between the worlds of earth and spirit. Let the winds echo the knowledge of the grandfathers who await, unseen yet visible, if we only turn our eyes toward their world. Let us hear their voices in the winds that blow. Mother Earth, hear your children. Hold our hands as we walk our path in this world. Guide us in the lessons we seek. Bring us closer to our Creator until we return to the western direction to once again enter the world of spirit, where the sacred fire awaits and we rejoin the council of the elders in the presence of one who created all. Amen.
It is Community Church's custom to light a chalice invoking hope and eternal truth to our worship. Please join us in singing "We Light This Flame." This flame to affirm the light of truth and knowledge and the warmth of love and community and the fire of hope and commitment. And now I welcome CCUU's Religious Education Director, Cynthia Ramirez, for the Words for All Ages.
Good morning. It looks great to see everybody here. It's been a long time. I'm going to share with you today 10 eco lessons in quotes from the Lorax. You know, the one with the one slur and the Lorax and the truffle of trees and the needs, I'll get it, that you need, right? So, and the babaloots in their babaloot suits, okay? So number one, unspoiled wilderness is a thing to treasure. The onceler who lives in a hermetic existence on the gloomy outskirts of town fondly reminisces about the days when the grass was green and the pond was still wet and the clouds were still clean. It is clear that he regrets the devastating impact his actions had on the area. Once pristine flora and fauna could be analogous for any number of biodiverse regions of the world currently threatened by development. Number two, take only pictures, leave only footprints. Recognizing the beauty of the truffle trees, the onceler chops down one and uses it to knit his first need, which looks a bit like a furry pajamas. There's no cause for alarm, he reasons with the Lorax. I chopped just one tree. But as demand for his product increases, he harvests more and more and more until they are all gone. Once begun, the exploitation of nature is difficult to stop. So it's best not to start. We must speak for the trees and all other living things. I am the Lorax, says the creature Seuss describes as sharpest and bossy. I speak for the trees, and for the trees have no tongues. There is no place in the world where it is considered okay to cut off a person's nose or skin or limbs. Yet, elephants are being killed for their tusks. Rhinos are being killed for their horns. And seals are being killed for their skins. And sharks are being killed for their fins. These animals cannot stand up for themselves. If we don't do it, who will? Number four, don't expect people in power to make eco-conscious decisions. For far too long, people have trusted governments and corporations to do the right thing. The Lorax says, which way does a tree fall? And the onceler responds, oh, down. The Lorax says, a tree falls the way it leans. Be careful which way you lean. But the onceler is a great example of how someone with good intentions can make very bad decisions when there's money to be made. Only by combining our collective voices can we, the people, truly have a say in the creation of environmental policies that encourage the sustainable development of a green economy. Number five, in nature, every action has a reaction. The onceler begins chopping trees and making needs 4 times faster, never once considering the long-term effects of the planet. I am the Lorax who speaks for the trees, which you seem to be chopping as fast as you please. But I'm also in charge of the brown boobaloots who play in the shade in their boobaloot suits and happily living, eating truffle fruits. First, the brown babaloots who feed on truffle fruits go hungry. Then, as the noxious fumes from the factory poison the water and air, the swans and the hummingfish leave. All too often, oil and natural gas companies begin drilling without understanding the long-term environmental impact. More often than not, it's devastating both to humans and wildlife. Number 6, development is not sustainable. It's a dead-end road. Dr. Seuss's trees in the Lorax can just as easily be the forest of Borneo, while illegal logging and palm oil plantations are destroying critical habitat for the endangered orangutan. These harvests may turn a quick profit, and how will the nation generate revenue once the forests are gone? Green industries such as ecotourism and renewable energy offer opportunities for more long-term profits via suitable development. Number 7, rampant consumerism creates a non-sustainable lifestyle. The Onceler justifies his environmental destruction by arguing that he's serving society by creating the needs, which he proclaims a needs is a fine thing that all people need. But many of our needs are manufactured via advertisement. Most of the things we are sold as needs are hardly necessary for our survival. By reducing our consumption, reusing everything we can, and recycling everything else, we minimize our individual and collective strain on the planet. Number 8, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. When the Lorax disappears from the Bering wasteland, he leaves behind a small pile of rocks with the word carved into them, unless. With his warning, unless someone like you cares an awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. Just as climate change and an ever-increasing number of endangered species are Mother Nature's warning to all of us, we must think of ourselves as the Lorax, and we must take action on behalf of the environment. Unless we do, things have no hope of getting better. Number 9, children are the seeds, and we must help them grow. As the end of his story, the Onceler gives the boy to whom he is telling the story, it is the very last truffula seed, encourages him to plant. Catch, says the Onceler. He lets something fall. It's a truffula seed. It's the last one of all. You're in charge of the last of the truffula seeds, and truffula trees are what everyone needs. Plant a new truffula, treat it with care, give it clean water, and feed it fresh air. The ultimate meaning of the Lorax is that educating children about the importance of environmental stewardship is the best hope for nurturing the sustainable development of a green economy. Somewhere in the world right now, there's a young boy and girl who may one day develop a revolutionary form of alternative energy, or an innovation in sustainable agriculture. They need our help to learn and grow. And finally, number 10, there is hope for the future, and it is us. Grow a forest, says the Onceler. Protect it from axes that hack. Then the Loris and all of his friends may come back. It is not too late for us as individuals to take action. Plant a tree, conserve water, learn how to live more sustainable, and travel more responsibly. Invest in clean energy, write your congressman and urge him or her to support a pro-environmental legislature. Dr. Seuss's timeless literary classic reminds us that anyone can make a difference. And in the end, we are all essential to creating a greater, greener world. All we have to do is speak for the trees. Thank you.
Imagine my delight this summer when I opened a catalog to an exhibit, Craft in America, to find a Shaker hymn that struck a chord with me. Perhaps it will with you. We know the Shakers for their love of simplicity, their beautiful designs. I never quite understood that they were creating environments that heaven, a place of spiritual purity, simplicity, and intrinsic beauty, could be built here on earth. This is a Shaker hymn from Mount Lebanon, New York. My heavenly home is here, no longer need I wait to cross the foaming river or pass the pearly gate. I've angels all around me, with kindness they surround me, to a glorious cause they've bound me, and my heavenly home is here.
Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you are online, please write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud. If you're in person, there are cards for joys and sorrows in our foyer, and if you weren't able to fill one out before the service, you can do so during our musical interlude. Thank you. We have a joy from Vera, who says, gratitude for a lovely, fun dinner at the home of the Malones last night. She also says, for family, Carol and Don, who we haven't seen in 2 years, and Don is very ill. We give thanks for them and their specialness in our love. From Howard, thinking about Max, who passed, memorial service at 3 p.m. today at FUU. Jolie has a joy. She says, my family is celebrating my mother's 92nd birthday today. Happy birthday. Jim says, such a joy to be here with our community church again. Indeed it is. Heidi says, my son and his bride, Andrew and Allie, were married over Labor Day in spite of COVID and hurricanes. That's wonderful. Congratulations to the happy couple. And checking in online, Scott has a joy. He says, my mom and dad appear to have survived COVID, and my awesome dad turns 81 today and is still a young, energetic man. That's wonderful news, and happy birthday to your dad, Scott. And we will light 2 more candles, one for the joys that are still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we can't yet put words to. Know that whatever you're experiencing right now, we love you and we hold you in our hearts. Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship, or you can give by text at 504-370-2659. Just text GIVE to that number. You can also send a check to CCUU at 6690 Fleur de Lis Drive, New Orleans, Louisiana 70124. And you can give in person. Please come forward during our musical offertory, or if you are unable to come forward, just raise your hand and we'll be happy to come to you. Thank you. This reading is from The Prophetic Imperative by David Reese Williams. We are joined together by a mystic oneness whose source we may never know, but whose reality we can never doubt. This mystic oneness has been glimpsed by nearly all the great seers and leaders of humanity. We are our neighbor's keeper, because that neighbor is but our larger self. Behold, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, because thy neighbor is thyself.
Now, more than ever, we need artists to take up the fallen mantle of meaning-making that the old myths and the discredited religions once wore. Those were words of Karen Armstrong as she concludes a short history of myth. As a meaning maker, I've been on a personal quest to find meaningful symbols for my ever-evolving religious thought. I'll share some of that quest with you this morning and its threads, but I will not give you the answer to, is this our mother's world? It remains a question for you. St. Francis, my dear St. Francis, was the first image that I found of one who with deep reverence lifted the mystical relatedness of all creation. Pope John Paul II proclaimed St. Francis of Assisi the patron saint of the environment in 79. Francis's famous Canticle of the Sun is a hymn of praise and thanksgiving with lyrics addressing, among others, brother sun and sister moon. On his deathbed in 1226, Francis sang, "Praise be my Lord for our sister mortal death, for whom no man alive will escape." May I be so wise in my last moments. I need something here. As one who lived in a rural setting and wrote ecstatic poetry to nature for a while, the Gaia Theory made perfect sense to me when I first heard it. The British chemist James Lovelock offered his Gaia hypothesis in the late 60s. As he noted, the Earth's atmosphere seemed to self-regulate. He was working with NASA at the time, and the idea came to him that seen from space, Earth would seem alive as a self-regulating organism. He named his hypothesis after the ancient Greek goddess of the earth. Lovelock portrays Gaia as a metaphorical being that embodies Earth as a broad, self-organizing system. Many scientists see this concept's usefulness in clarifying the complex interactions between organisms and how they respond to human activities. Some of my most recent sacred moments were spent in awed silence within a giant sequoia forest. In this millennium, there has been remarkable moving of our attention away from the gravitas of an individual tree and toward what trees do as a collective. What passes between trees, the nuances, the exchanges, and their seemingly delicate mechanism of connection. This mystery has inspired a rich new realm of research, along with literature dedicated to spreading a revised conception of the powers and processes that allow arboreal plants to thrive. I'll reference some this morning. The title of German forest Peter Wollenbein's hugely popular book, The Hidden Life of Trees, What They Feel, How They Communicate, Trees, sums up the paradigm shift, and it captures the tone of awed revelation and shared by researchers and readers alike. What a tree is feels utterly changed today. I learned in Wollenbein's The Heart of Trees that study of tree branches, I'm a tree, shows that they very slowly raise and lower their branches several times a day, creating a pumping action to bring the sap from their roots. If a tree was once understood as a mostly static living object, I now see it rippling with change, configured by its surroundings. Meg Lohman's research of tree canopies revealed that trees can engineer the weather they grow in. Amazonian canopies induce rain by releasing through transpiration enough water droplets to create low-level clouds. Showers from those clouds change the air temperature, triggering winds that draw additional moist air inland from the oceans, watering the tree with further rain. Leaves collect light, of course, and thereby beget energy a tree needs for fresh growth and regeneration and reproduction. But leaves, including their stems and buds, also emit airborne biochemicals. Some plants have caught fire and use their smoke to signal seeds that conditions are conducive for germination, thereby preserving their species. Thank goodness sequoias do this, though it'll take a long time for them to get as large. Leaves attacked by grazers seem to effuse what some scientists are calling wound hormones. And in certain trees, this response can convey more than the fact of injury. A beech leaf torn by the mouth of a munching deer and a beech leaf snipped mechanically release different sets of concoctions of chemicals. Deer saliva, in the first case, is the trigger. Studies done on other plants exposed to vapors from damaged leaves have shown that unharmed tree neighbors begin to ramp up productions of defensive toxins targeted to deter the specific plant eaters in the forest. Lohman's evidence shows that beyond being a habitat for tree-living creatures, a tree canopy is the lively and fluctuating expression of tree interaction and strategy. Suzanne Simard, a preeminent forest ecologist and author of Finding the Mother Tree, discovering the wisdom of the forest, contributes to arboreal science by explaining the function of mycorrhizal networks, a webbing of thready fungi, both through and expanding beyond tree roots, fastening the trees to one another in the soil. As Simard frames it, the trees she and her team are engaged in have a kind of mutual aid. Resources are rerouted from trees in the sunlight to those that grow in the shade, from trees that have surplus water to those that are dehydrated. Signals are telegraphed through these mycorrhizal from bug-infested trees to adjacent healthy trees. Saplings detached from the network fail to thrive. That's our babies. As an aged tree reaches its terminus, it uses microcorrhizal linkages to give sizable carbon stores to its young. These aged trees, Simard labels mother trees. Mothering here means tantamount to self-sacrifice. Rather than being competitive organisms, each tree invests in the well-being of the forest as a whole via the microcorrhizal. Trees are certainly in distress in fires over the world, and those whose roots were pulled up or branches severed by the winds of big storms like those stacked on our curbsides. With a deeper appreciation of trees as interconnected living organisms, I see the piles as tree bones. The trees have recovered from many other assaults, but they will not be the same. And how much can they withstand with shorter periods of recovery? In 2012, during a ministerial sabbatical, I traveled the Western National Parks camping out of my 210 Prius hatchback, a highlight of my life. I lay in my car most nights, looking through mosquito-netted windows at the unbelievable starry skies, unpolluted by city lights. And in the morning, birds I'd never seen, magpies, flitting vermilion flycatchers, and animals like the javelina family under my car, snorting and rooting in the damp, irrigated earth at Big Bend Park. There were magnificent mountains, some brilliant reds and oranges, and the striated walls of the Grand Canyon reflecting ancient geological eras, and the enormous smooth rocks and desert of Joshua Tree. All of these newly enamored me, who thought I only loved green and green trees, with the greater expanse and the bounty of our Mother Earth. I visited Pueblo ruins and museums of native artworks and history. I remember one Pueblo in which the guide pointed to a hole in the earth and said that her people believed they were born from such earthly sites. An image worth pondering. Earth giving birth. Outside of Tucson, I was taken to see Pueblo ruins in the cliffside by a dying guide of the Navajo Nation, and we were on reservation lands. He took me in his Jeep and for a tour of the dwellings and the cliffs and of ancient pictographs, and he told me stories of growing up on the floor of the canyon where his grandparents still live without electricity. He spoke of native respect for their Mother Earth. As the sun was setting, we bounced and slid, as we were definitely off-road, back to my car in a comfortable silence as I pondered all that he had said. On returning home to Tennessee, I read books on Cherokee teachings for living in harmony and balance, and the Cherokee way of right relationship. Robin Wall Kimmerer's Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants, an Unusual Combination. It's a recent writing by an indigenous botanist and professor of environmental studies. In an online 2020 interview, Robin Wall Kimmerer said, "This is a time to take a lesson from mosses. What is it that has enabled them to persist for 350 million years through every kind of catastrophe, every climate change that ever's happened on this planet? And what might we learn from that? All the ways that they live, I just feel are really poignant teachings for us right now of being small, of giving more than you take, of working with natural law, and of sticking together." Most people don't really see plants or understand plants or what they give us, Kimmerer explains. So my act of reciprocity, which is so very big in Native worship life, my act of reciprocity is, having been shown plants as gifts, as intelligences other than our own, as these amazing creative beings, I want to help them become visible to other people. People can't understand the world as a gift unless someone shows them how it is a gift. What's being revealed to me from readers is a really deep longing for connection with nature. Kennemer says, it's as if people remember in some kind of early ancestral place within them. They're remembering what it might be like to live somewhere with a feeling of companionship with the living world, not estrangement. Key to this is viewing nature not as a resource, but like an elder relative. To recognize kinship with mountains and plants and lakes. The idea, rooted in indigenous language and philosophy, where a natural being isn't regarded as an it, but as kin, holds affinities with the emerging rights of nature movement today. But I wonder, Kennemer continues, can we at some point turn our attention to understanding that the vulnerability we are experiencing right now, hear this, I'm amazed, is the vulnerability that songbirds feel every single day of their lives? Could this extend our sense of ecological compassion to the rest of our more than human relatives? I became an environmental scientist and a writer because of what I witnessed growing up within an indigenous world of gratitude and gifts. I just have to have faith that when we change how we think, when we change, we will change how we act and how those around us act. And that's how the world changes. It's changing hearts and changing minds, and it's contagious. In that same vein, Mark I. Wallace, professor of religion and environmental studies at Swarthmore, calls contemporary Christianity to reclaim ancient biblical animistic beliefs in God who dwelled literally within earthly creation. I can, just off the top of my head, remember God walking in the Garden of Eden with Adam, and they had this little conversation. But more than that, he lists many biblical examples. But later scriptural writings, influenced by Greek and Roman philosophy, removed God to the heavens. Earth had been sacred, but a distant sky god left humanity in a worldview that sees human beings as above nature and divinely endowed with the right to dominion over the biosphere, with divine permission to use the earth and its creatures thoughtlessly. We will save what we love, writes Wallace, and what we adore, and what we give ultimate value. These we will save. This is my sermon's reason for being. We will save what we love, what we adore, and what we give ultimate value. Though a Christian theologian, Mark Wallace writes that early each morning he goes into his front yard and calls the four directions, similar to the indigenous prayer I used for our call to worship. He inspired me to seek a morning practice that would better suit my love of nature and my concern for Mother Earth. And I wanted to invoke the divine each day by doing something truly felt, a ritual. I have adapted "This Is My Father's World," a hymn that so inspired my Methodist youth that my heart would fill to bursting as I sang it at the top of my lungs while solitarily, I hope out of everyone's ear range, plodding on a horse on my grandmother's farm. Now on my porch, with coffee in hand, I sing my morning devotional. This is our mother's world. I sing to our mother with our generative Mother Earth in mind. I may splash a bit of fresh coffee on the soil of a potted plant as a reciprocal practice of gratitude. In closing, I want to summarize with the words of James Lovelock's Gaia Theory. One only needs science and our ordinary senses to recognize that an environment is alive, a fluid, changing web of purposeful lives dependent on each other. And the words of Kennemer, when she spoke of her plants and their poignant teachings for us right now, of being small, of giving more than you take, of working with natural law, and of sticking together. And Mark Wallace's, we will save what we love, what we adore, and what we give ultimate value. I offer you this morning our Mother Earth over there. Maybe I should pick her up. Our Mother Earth, sacred image of my contemporary religious thought. Amen. The benediction. I am going to try to sing to you. This is our mother's world. I couldn't sleep last night for the horror of thinking about this being on the internet. And my voice is already hoarse because I haven't preached or talked that much lately, but we're going to give it a try. So this is my hymn of praise. This is our mother's world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is our mother's world. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, her hand the wonders wrought. This is our mother's world. The birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is our mother's world. She shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass I hear her pass. She speaks to me everywhere.
think that this one really fits with your last sermon. Oh Christ, where is it?
The blue carton?
Oh no. Here it is. There it is. In the branches of the forest, in the meadows of the marigold, on the shoulder of the mountain, in the vastness of the sea, you will find love brooding sadness over all the ancient watershed. You will see it.
I'd like to thank Nicholas Yater for his gifts to this service today. Thank you so much. The music moves me beyond words.
Oh, thank you.